Good evening, thank you. It being 7 o'clock, I'm going to call to order the Legislative Task Force tonight. And our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rather uniquely, we have a chair and a vice chair and no other officers on this task force. The chairman, Jim McEachern, is out of town today. I am David Mills, state representative, and I am the vice chair. I gave you that little history simply because we don't have anybody to call a roll. So instead, we're going to take attendance by starting from my left, have everybody introduce themselves, and come right on down the line. Please.
Michael Thiel from the school board.
David Clapp from the school board.
Dave Granessi, town council.
Jody Nelson, state representative.
Regina Birdsall, state senator.
Erica Lyon, state representative.
Perfect. We are going to start with the update from the town council today, so I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Granisi. Give us an update on the town update, please.
All right, thank you. Everything's great in town. We just a couple of things I want to talk about going on. Next Tuesday starts the concerts on the Common down at McGregor Park. We got a bunch of great bands going there, and we got the pizza stock going there. The lineup is on the town website. There is the farmers market started last night. I went down, checked it out. It's every Wednesday downtown, and this is Pride Month. I just want to wish everybody a happy Pride. Reread the Pride proclamation Tuesday night. Just remind people, June 28th is Pride Day in Derry, and the Pride flag's flying in Town Hall on the 1st or the 30th. Abbott Court is continuing. It's on the agenda. There will be an update as soon as we can update everybody. And Exit 4A is just continuing Exit 4A. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much. For those following along at home, there's some items on our agenda and at yours at home that because of non-public meetings, we aren't able to discuss at this time. So, but we will check off every item on our agenda. Let's move over to the school update. And I take it, Mr. Clapp, you want to take over, please?
Good evening. So a couple quick things. We have Pinkerton graduation tomorrow night at 6/8. And we have the middle school promotion ceremonies at 6:15 at the Hackle.
Mr. Chair, if we could just ensure your microphone's on, please. Thank you.
Sorry. There we go. Good evening. So just quick updates. We have Pinkerton graduation tomorrow night. And on 6/15, which is next Thursday, we have the promotion ceremony for the middle schools at the Hackler Gym. Facilities update. We are currently in the midst of starting our reorg plan that we've been going for a little while now. The administration started curriculum updates with parents, teachers at various meetings for the last month and a half. We expect a full-blown project plan latest August, but probably see it in July, which will outline the whole plan and kind of show timelines and updates. So as you know, we have a meeting on June 20th where we will discuss the school closing at that meeting, and then move forward from there. Any legislative suggestions? The biggest one that we have right now is a few weeks ago we were talking about the next charter school's memorandum of understanding, and one of the things that came up was, and this is not a huge deal. There's only about 7 kids less than 10 kids that come from out of district, and what I didn't realize, and I asked the question, is sending towns don't have to pay next charter school for those kids that come out of district. Sending towns.
Really?
We get the adequacy aid obviously, but we don't receive any tuition, which was shocking to me as well.
I'm at a loss to even ask who would we go to find out an answer for that. I mean, to me, that sounds particularly a school board problem in question. So,
By law.
by law,
I'm sorry, I
okay.
should have said that. I asked that same
Okay.
question, why are we collecting?
Luckily, I have a hand raised and we might have an answer.
Thank
Representative Leon.
Thank you very much. There are actually two types of charter schools, one that is a district-created charter school, and then there are the standard charter schools. They do have different rules. That's why we are involved with Next, but I can look into why it works that way. Because with a standard charter school, the towns don't pay them at all, and the charter school payment goes directly to the charter school. So this is something that may just be an unentanglement about the fact that we're talking about a district-sponsored charter school. But if you can send me an email, I can get in touch with the Department of Education and figure out what we need to do and figure out why it is this way.
Okay. Thank you, and I will apologize to everybody because I should have opened it up. I'm sorry, back when we had the town council representative, were there any questions for our town council representative at the time? And good, seeing none, I didn't miss anything. Do I have any questions for the school board?
One last thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we talked at our last meeting about special education and reaching out to our federal delegation. And I had sent an email, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks after that. Michael had kind of alerted us that there was actually legislation filed by, I think it was session 21, 22, and the co-sponsors were Senator Hassan and Senator Shaheen was a co-sponsor. It didn't go anywhere, but it is out there and it is being pursued. So obviously that doesn't prevent us from continuing to pursue those guys. But just to give everyone a heads up, I didn't know. Michael kind of pointed me in that direction. Is there has been legislation that's been kind of submitted, it just didn't really go anywhere. But as I said, it doesn't prevent us from keep pushing, obviously. So we will do that, and hopefully for our September 14th meeting, we can get you guys something to review and we can move on.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the school board members? Yes, we do have
One question.
Representative, I'm so used to being in Concord. Councilman Bernisi.
Thanks. I don't know if you can answer the question. I'm just curious. Actually, a two-part question. What's the process that the board is using to decide which school to close? In whatever school you do decide to close, what's your plans for the building?
For moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward, yeah.
Yeah.
If you could, you know.
No, it's great questions. And I will answer them from my perspective, if Michael wants to chime in too, because each board member will look at it from a different perspective, right, when they make their decision. So obviously we started this process off by going the new school route, right? Back last year, that was our primary option, and we were going to close Derry Village and South Range and build a school on this Derry Village property behind the school. Obviously, when we filed our funding state aid package, we ranked 6th, and usually it looks like the top 2 or so get funded based on the amount that's allocated. So we reconvened and kind of thought of what we gotta do next, and then the plan we did, the plan last year, we did warrant articles to remove money out of the retained funds, right, to do roofs. $1.8 million, you probably remember it on the ballot.
Yep.
And then we had appropriated $700,000 for other repairs. That was the initial start of the process, right? And then, you know, prior to the previous board leaving after the elections, we decided to make that decision to move forward with the 5, 6, 7, 8 model at our middle schools and close the elementary school and go to a K through 4. So all along the way, there's been multiple reports. LaValle Brenzer did their master plan report, right? And then we had another consultant, Jobin Consultants, take the top priority issues at each school and kind of give us a layout of the land and what the costs were for those top priority items that needed a little more research on, right? And then we have the Gale report, which was discussed on Tuesday night on the envelope issues at South Range and Derry Village. And we have West Runningbrook, but that's going to be at our next meeting because obviously West Runningbrook isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So when you take all that information into account, I think from my perspective, there's a financial piece, right? All those reports I just mentioned had dollars associated to them, whatever. You got to take that into account. You got to take account what's best for the students, right? It's not just. It shouldn't be just a financial decision. It should be a well-rounded decision. And then, and then at the end of the day, it's our job to give that to the public on the 20th and kind of explain that and explain our reasons why and move forward. So to answer your next question, I guess it depends what school you close, right? So if you close Derry Village, let's say you close Derry Village, right?
Yep.
You know, you can't really get rid of the land if you want to build a new school someday, because that's the place we've kind of determined it makes sense to put a new school on, right? And then, you know, there was options thrown around. We've had meetings with the town regarding Grinnell's too. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago, probably about a month ago, about Grinnell. Because what came up last summer was, I think one of the councilors, and Dave Karen and Bev, went to the school board, to Austin and the chair, and talked about possibly a senior center there at Grinnell, right? And what that would look like from a, how do you deal with the finances of that? That was discussed. We revisited about a month ago, and I think when we left the meeting, there was really, Dave was gonna look into maybe getting funding, and it would be a 6-month process, kind of to get the process started and then bring it to you guys. And so, from a timing perspective, that doesn't seem advantageous right now. And I'm not even sure if the town council would even want to go down that road. South Range is a little bit more of a challenge, what to do there. You know, I'm kind of doing my research on that. I guess there's multiple options, right? If you close South Range, you would try to sell the land. From what I've heard previously, we did that with Floyd, and it was a hard time. They had a hard time selling it. So I mean, that's part of my time here in Derry. But I guess that would be, and I'm assuming it's residential zoning. So you would assume, and I don't. I mean, I'm just.
Yeah.
Housing, condo kind of thing would probably be maybe an over 55 community. I guess I forget the name of it, medium residential, what's it called, medium density residential?
Yeah.
That's what it's actually zoned at?
It's 1 acre, I believe.
Yeah.
It's 1 acre.
So there's 12 acres there, right? You know, I'm starting to, you know, I'm doing my research to figure that out. I am not quite there yet, I'll be honest with you. I'm still up in the air where I lie on this. I know you saw, you know, Tuesday night, you saw the school board meeting, so, you know, that is what it is.
Yeah.
I take, you know, accusations are made, and, you know, it is what it is. We'll move forward. But that's where I see the process. I'm long-winded here, but trying to start from the beginning, go through.
No, I appreciate that.
But, you know, obviously I'm one person, so it's subject to everyone on the board's feelings about it, and you know, the expectation is the administration will give us a recommendation as well, right? You know, they're the ones running the district. They should be the ones that are kind of telling us what they think is the best route to go, and then we kind of work together to figure that out. I will say it's not an easy decision. It's been a long. I didn't run for school board to close a school or do what we're doing right now. You know, it just happens. That's what I inherited, and that's kind of what I'm dealing with. I should say we, but and it's just one of those things where, you know, you deal with cards you dealt, and you kind of work through the process and move forward, and you know, try to do the best you can and put the work in, and hopefully people will respect that and whatever decision's made. You know, you never please everybody, obviously, and you know, this decision was delayed for so long. This should have been done years ago, you know, and unfortunately, it is what it is. I look at it, we move forward. At first, I was, you know, ticked off. You just move forward and kind of do what's best for the students, the town, and taxpayers, and residents, and parents, and that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if Michael, sorry, I kind of.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Just to give you a little bit of background, I was the actual chairman back in 2017 when we had our first huge get-together about closing a school, and I was the chairman of that subcommittee. And we had reached a decision, a recommendation, not a decision, a recommendation that if South Range School was to be closed at the time, that there was an option to donate it or get the Derry Town Parks and Recreation to take it over, because they've got such a great outdoor facility out there for basketball courts and for everything else, and there was enough room there. So just to give you a little bit of further consideration, if you'd like.
I don't know, was Mike an answer to? Or?
Any other questions?
I was just going to say, I mean, I'm coming from a similar place. You know, we've gotten numerous reports of the condition that the schools are in. So a major factor is going to be, you know, the school that we keep, how much money is it going to cost to repair it? And of course, what the reuse is going to look like for the building and how easy it's going to be to reuse that property. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really difficult decision. It's not something that any of us want to have to do. And, you know, but, you know, all of our schools, all 7 of them need a lot of work. And, you know, we've got a lot to get done over the ensuing years to get all of our schools to where they should be.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Land, question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the school board about the fiscal advisory board for the school board. Are there any changes being made to the format for that this year, or are we continuing on with the way that it has been?
It's a very good question. So we, shortly after the election, we had a Saturday meeting where we had goals set up for the school board in the upcoming year. And one of those goals was regarding budget and how we refine the process. And part of refining that process is having a better partnership with the Fiscal Advisory Committee and starting the process a lot earlier than we have in the past. Because, you know, if I was Jane and I'm doing a budget, I'd like to have some directive ahead of time, and given targets or whatever the case may be, she needs a better direction as we move forward. And I think so tentatively, it's good timing. I think we scheduled for something near the end of July to get together. It's not hammered out the exact date, but that's a tentative time frame. And it doesn't have to be the end of July. It could be early August, somewhere in that time frame, early in the summer. And it was decided it won't be like a 3 school board person. We're going to do all of us together with all of you guys together. It just made more sense because, you know, 3 of us shouldn't be making decisions for 7, so we can all just be in the same room, hash it out, figure out which direction we want to go, and then hopefully we can have a much more productive session from October to early December, whatever it is, because I think we can both agree they're not very productive when all you're doing is sitting there trying to cut stuff, and we don't have a lot of conversation around the needs and what that kind of stuff. We spend a lot of time just trying to figure out, crap, what are we, $9 million last year, and we had to cut like 5 or something like that? You know, it was not fun. So if we can give Jane some direction, I think we can make those meetings more productive, you know, based on the expectations ahead of time and not after the fact kind of thing. So hopefully that will be productive.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot, and I'll be joining you again then. I just wanted to make sure it was a good use of everybody's time. So I thank you for that.
I couldn't agree with you more because, you know.
Okay, thank you then. Coming next on the agenda is our legislative update. I'm going to move to Representative Jody Nelson to give us the latest news on our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to just give you a few highlights of today, and then I will pass the torch on to my colleagues to the right to add. Big news today is that we concurred and passed HB1 and HB2, reading our budget. It was an overwhelmingly bipartisan effort, and I think something we should be really proud of. I wanted to just give you a couple highlights, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to read, about how our budget helped us on the town side, and then I will talk to you about school numbers. Our meals and rooms tax distribution maintains the promise the legislation made last session by fulfilling funding municipalities' 30% share. From Derry's perspective, the increase in this revenue source during the last season allowed the town to address its critical need to replace Central Fire Station without a significant impact to the local tax rate, added an additional $20 million statewide to the highway block grant and bridges, housing initiative funds, which may prove helpful to Derry, and funds for homelessness issues as we anticipate increased pressure on our local general assistance budget as other forms of aid post-pandemic wind down. On the school side, we went from current law for the biennium, which was $61,757,304, to the dollar amount that we voted on today, the Senate Finance final proposal for the biennium, which is $63,691,380, which is an increase of $1,934,077.
May I ask a question?
Thank you. Thank you. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. So Thank you for that. I mean, any increase we get, I appreciate that. So when I make my next comment, don't take offense to it, because I appreciate it, and it's definitely well needed, obviously. But my question is, what happened from the House version, which was significantly more money, probably close to $3 million more over the 2 years, to what happened at the Senate? I watched a little bit of I tried to watch a little bit of the meeting before I left work today, and the May 30th meeting, whatever it was, of the Senate Finance Committee. And, you know, I was just curious. I don't know. I don't understand what happened. I mean, I see on paper what happened, obviously. I mean, where Derry does better is, what helps Derry more is the fiscal capacity disparity aid, relief aid, stabilization. And all of those were zeroed out from the House version, which the House allocated, looks like almost $9 million for relief aid. Fiscal capacity was $39 million. Stabilization was $133 million, somewhere in that range. I'm going off of, and then the Senate kind of zeroed it out and top-loaded the extraordinary need, which doesn't help Derry as much, clearly, right, based on the numbers. So that's my question. Thank you.
Mr. Clapp, I'm going to defer that question for right now for Jody, because we're going to let Senator Birdsall answer that when it's her turn. And at this point in time, I'm just going down through the agenda. So at this point, if that's all we have for Jody, I'm going to move on down to Representative Leon for anything that she would like to add.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In the bipartisan budget that we just passed, overwhelmingly, there's $160.5 million more for supporting health and well-being. We increased Medicaid reimbursement rates by $134 million, which is going to go a long way to making sure that we have adequate health care and that we are paying people appropriately and that they're able to pay the employees appropriately. There's $850,000 in Medicaid for birth and lactation services, which helps many of our families here. $4 million to family resource centers like the Upper Room, $5 million for crisis stabilization services, and $16.5 million more for family resource infrastructure funding. We also have, well, the Senate delivered this to us, but we have some fantastic efforts against human trafficking. We have $800,000 for the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. We have $3 million for child advocacy centers, $500,000 to combat human trafficking, and $1.4 million for the Northern Border Alliance, which will help us to combat fentanyl crossings and human trafficking. There's $15 million towards childcare recruitment and retention. There's $6 million more in TANF, which is the temporary assistance to needy families. This was a bill that came together. It's unprecedented that the House agreed with the Senate and we didn't go to a committee of conference. But with the way that the House is set up this year, we had to get to an agreement that we could have. I know that I personally would have liked to have a different school funding formula, but we probably would not have had a budget if we had gone to a committee of conference. I had very, very low expectations that if we tried to break up this budget as it came from the Senate, that we would have any way to pass the budget. One of the most important things we passed in the budget is we passed a 7-year sunset on Medicaid expansion. That means that our adults without children who are getting Medicaid right now, that are making up to 138% of the poverty level, continue to get that care through Medicaid expansion for another 7 years. Had we not passed a budget, that would have gone away. So there's some compromises that do need to happen in the budget process, as I'm sure you understand the compromises on the school board budget. But I think that we delivered a very strong budget to the people of New Hampshire. I do have one other item as well. I participated in the Braver Angels training that was offered at the State House. That was one where they brought together Republicans and Democrats to be able to talk and get past some of that animosity that happens online. They have a bunch of different workshops. They have a red-blue workshop for elected officials that would allow us to sort of get past those initial problems and figure out how we can work together to solve the core issues that we all share. They have another one, managing difficult conversations with constituents, that helps when we're receiving feedback from our constituents to be able to figure out how to best work with that, best hear them, and best solve their needs. There's a similar one with colleagues. So all of these would be available to us. If this is something that we as a joint legislative group wanted to bring to Derry, we could get that scheduled if we wanted to take on any of these. I do know we have a lot of responsibilities in our individual roles, but I did want to offer that Braver Angels training.
Thank you. Representative Nelson, you have a question?
I just wanted to add, I did attend one of those Braver Angels trainings in the past, and it was really great. So I would be happy to participate in that here with everybody if other people wanted to do so as well. Thanks.
Thank you. If there's no other questions for Representative Leon, we'll move to Senator Birdsall and be able to get back to Mr. Clapp's question.
Well, thank you, and I'll actually answer your question. When the budget came to the House, or came to the Senate, there were two things that the Senate was dealing with. One was the governor was bound and determined, whether we liked it or not, to get rid of the stabilization grant. He considered that a veto capability if it was in there. So Tim Lang, one of the state senators, worked really diligently to try and get it in there. The other issue with the House version is, while it funded it for the Educational Trust Fund for 24 and 25, in the year 2026, the Educational Trust Fund would have been $155 million in the hole. So it was front-loading all of that. So Tim put the formula together, and I did offer, he said he would talk to anyone who had a question about how he put it together. But what he did is he took the, yes, he put extraordinary needs in there, and he put hold harmless. He couldn't get the hold harmless as high as the stabilization grants, but that between the extraordinary needs and the hold harmless, that it should get us up to about where we were, which it did. We're about a million ahead. So, and I know there's a lot of consternation because Manchester, compared to Derry, Manchester's getting peanuts. Understand, Manchester has 11,000 students. Derry has 4,600. And almost half of those students are on F&R. Right. So that is why they get it, and Manchester and Concord.
I get that. I don't question that. I get that.
Okay.
That part of it anyways.
So, piggybacking on what Representative Leon was saying, if the budget had not gone through, and the 7-year extension of the Granite Advantage health care program would be gone, $134 million. And while we were in Senate Finance, as we were listening to the, as being chair of Health and Human Services, we got a lot of information on the rates that New Hampshire was paying for their Medicaid rates. And when you're paying nurses and LNAs $12 to $13 an hour, we're losing them. And what's happening is they're back. We're not able, so the nursing homes and some of the rehab centers are closing wings. So they're backing up into the emergency rooms. So what this does is it brings them up to hopefully a livable wage so that we don't lose them to Massachusetts, to Vermont, and to Maine. So, and there was $169 million increase in state aid to the local school districts. We would have lost $40 million in new state water and wastewater grants, $20 million in the road and bridges that Derry will probably be getting, and what they call, we would have lost the Medicaid capability of what was called the Momnibus bill. It was basically to help families and mothers get back to work. And we started a new system, care for the healthy aging, so that the aging can stay longer in their homes without having to go to the nursing homes. We are starting a pilot program to try and get them to stay longer in their homes, which hopefully it'll be healthier for them and healthier for the state. There's another additional, that we will have lost the additional $6 million for TANF, which is assistance for needy families. And because of this budget, UNH chose to freeze their tuition for the next 2 years. We also gave additional money to UNH with the agreement that they would match it to go to Plymouth State and to Keene State because they're really struggling financially. And there was a 12% raise for our state employees and our state police in this. So it was a really good budget. There were a lot of things. There was things in there that people liked and things that people didn't like, which means you've upset both sides. So you've got a pretty good budget.
It's a perfect budget. When nobody's happy.
Can I just make one additional comment?
Yes, yes, Mr. Clapp.
So I appreciate that, Regina. Thank you, Senator Burchell. Thank you. The only comment I would make at the end here, and I'll shut up, is as I was watching the Senate Finance Committee meeting, Senator Bradley mentioned at the end that, he mentioned the money that's coming back for the schools, and he mentioned that he called it property tax relief. Those are the words he used, and in my mind, like I know for Derry, instance, when we get that money, that doesn't go back to the taxpayers. It goes back to when we start a new budget, at minimum, we're $3 million down, right? At least we had 3.62% increase this past year on close to $100 million budget. So that's $3 million right off the bat. So if you get 900,000, whatever it is in the first year, that's not going back to the taxpayers. That's funding to offset some of the increases we're seeing. And I'm sure there's always other things down the line where ESSA funds are going away. We have to figure out how to keep our interventionists, math interventionists, reading interventionists, those kind of things. As we lose the ESSA funds, that's another $1.2 million we have to try to fund in this upcoming year budget. So I just a comment, but like I said, at the end of the day, I do appreciate what we are getting, and I get the hoops you guys got to jump through to make compromises, and I get that. It's just, like anything, you always wish it was better, and the House did such a good job in the initial submission. It kind of, maybe I got my hopes up too high, but it was one of those things where, when you saw the cut that you got, it's a little disappointing, and for us, I mean, I don't have to give you the sob story for us. Everyone knows it. So it's one of those things where we could have really used that money to help fund repairs, deferred maintenance on the schools that are sticking around. And, it's going to be tough. But I just wanted to make that comment that, when we do get those additional funds, that definitely doesn't go back to the taxpayer in any form. It goes to fund the budget increases that we see every year. And then whatever else deferred maintenance we have that we have to address. And I mentioned those ESSER positions that we really need to keep. So there's a lot that comes up. It seems like when you plug one hole, like there's 3 others that pop up, like any other, like anything else, whether it's your home or business or whatever. But that's just my final comment. But thank you again.
Well, one of the things I will say, when we say and I had a frank conversation with Senator Bradley about that, because I understand that people, our citizens and our taxpayers don't see that money coming back. But we also have to understand that when it comes to, let's say, the roads and bridges, the money coming back to the roads and bridges, that's money that the taxpayers in Derry are not paying. It's coming so that the Derry can fix the roads, so it's not coming out of the Derry taxpayers. It's spread across the state. And I know some of our citizens don't see it, but it is helping relieve some of the burden.
Fair enough. Representative Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I have a question for you. When the school funding formula was changed, it looked to me like it was an increase in the part of the school budget that's called the adequacy aid, which is the payment for the adequate education. And there's less of those extra add-ons in order to try and make different communities whole. That move, it was my understanding that is to bring us better in line with the lawsuits the different school boards, including Derry, have for the state to take a larger share of that adequacy, the cost of an adequate education, because now the line item we have for the cost of an adequate education is larger.
And thank you for bringing that up. That is one of the things that really spurred Tim to put this together, because of the lawsuit, we have to show some stability in our formula. So with this formula, and I encourage you to sit down with him and go through it, he can go out 10 years, and it's a very stable formula. And that's something that the lawsuit, I'm sure that the judge is going to be looking at when he takes a look at it, so that it is a much more stable formula, and when it needs to be added in, things need to be added on, it can be.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I highly encourage you to, and let's get Mr. Clapp's info to Tim, or Tim's info, Senator Lang's info to David, because I know myself, I spoke with Senator Lang because I had a lot of questions about these formulas and how they applied to Derry, and how I could answer questions to constituents and also be able to vote for this budget. I know you also, Erica, Representative also had a conversation with him as well. And I had a lot of questions that were answered. And one of the things that he wanted to really hammer home was that this, as you said, has sustainability and predictability over the next 10 years. And that was something that I think that is important for me as a legislator, thinking about being able to plan for our future. Thank you.
Representative Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also spoke with Representative Lang and Senator Lang. He's just recently crossed over to the other side. And Senator Bradley about this formula. And this is a very large, very important change, but it's one of those that I'm also looking to try and get the spreadsheet from the Legislative Budget Office so that I can see what ways we may be able to look at it and what tweaks may be possible. But I know that being on education and dealing with so many of these, you set these up, you look at it, you say Derry is a town with low property values. When we increase this one particular part, it's going to benefit Derry. But that doesn't always happen with the equations. So this is one of those risks of expecting more and more of it coming to the state, because there's other communities that are far more needy than Derry. And so the more that we're able to not have to send that money to every other town that's more needy and doesn't manage their money as carefully as Derry, the better off we are here in Derry. So I know it's a difficult, challenging balance, and it's one that I do want to work to try and figure out what we can do and how we can make this the most fair over the whole state. But I think that the formula that is in the budget that Senator Lang came up with is by far the best funding formula I have seen, and I've seen quite a few come through.
Let me just add, because I have that spreadsheet. And the hold harmless list, Derry is getting over $6.2 million in their hold harmless. They are getting, I believe, the most out of all 238 towns in this state. So they have been looking out for Derry.
I get that. I guess what I do is I look at the year-over-year increase in our revenue as the kind of standard, right? So the 900,000 that we get this coming cycle will help. I'm not disputing that, and I don't want to sound grateful, or I get the challenges. It was just a surprise. That's all.
Okay.
But I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Clapp. I think one thing that everybody's said, and unless you're an insider and know all the jargon, you don't even realize. I know some of your concern was the difference in between the House version and the Senate version. The House was operating under, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the House was operating under the old formulas that hadn't been put in yet. And we also considered the Education Trust Fund. We thought we were going to be closing that down, so we were trying to bleed all the money out of it. So that's where that money was. In the meantime, as legislation went forward, things had changed. We couldn't deplete the Education Trust Fund, and the Senate had been working on this entire new formula. So that's where their figures came in. Sure. So that's basically what that big, because that was my first question was, how could they take $1.82 million away from us, but it made sense at that point in time.
And one of the things too, if you look at, and you may not have the advantage, but if you look at what the governor's budget was, the governor gave.
Oh, you're right, I get that, yeah.
The governor came in at 30.8, the House came in at 33, and the Senate came in at 31, almost right smack in the middle.
All right, we've gone through everybody, we've gone through the agenda that I have, other than a summary, so let me just ask, are there any other comments or questions from anyone here? Left to right, seeing none? Nope. Right, seeing none? Then I'll just give a fast summary, which is, we passed the budget today, and nobody's happy about it, so that means it was a pretty good damn budget. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Next meeting that we are going to schedule is for September 14th, 2023, when we will be able to address any kind of bills or things that we can help the town and the school with. Correct? We stand adjourned.